Latino junior at Rock High School. Future Canadian community.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Joshua Latino. I'm a junior at Rock High School. Future Canadian community. My question is, what's the most challenging experience you faced while being senator?
What is the most challenging experience you've faced as a senator? There have been many.
There have been. We've been doing it for a little while. You know, the most difficult issues for us are the issues where the people that we represent, it's like 50-50. 99% of what we decide, by the time we work it through the process, we've amended it. We try to make everybody happy. Sometimes we make everybody mad at us. Either way, then maybe we've got a pretty good piece, balanced piece of legislation. But the most challenging issues are those issues where your elected people, your bosses are 50-50 split. And I can think in my career, there were two big issues like that. Death penalty and gay marriage. Those were two issues where if you talk to 100 people, you get 50 opinions on one side and 50 opinions on the other side. And those are the issues where ultimately you have to reach down inside your soul and you have to vote how you feel in your stomach and in your heart and in your mind. It's the best way to vote. So to me, those are the most challenging issues that I've had to vote on.
I would agree with Michael that those issues are, were very difficult issues because there were members in your constituency that, large numbers in your constituency that were on the other side of that issue. So, but to me, and sometimes when we talk about these very, very contested issues in the constituency, sometimes they also become a very easy issue because you're going to have just as many people mad at you no matter what you do.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what was said originally. It's a lot easier both on those difficult issues and in the issues that are not as difficult, just to do what you think is the right thing, to do. The most difficult issue for me, though, and this goes across a lot of issues, is public perception and reality. The difference between perception and reality of issues. How they get framed in the press, so this is for some communication majors out there, how they get framed in the press, and then how we're dealing with a total different reality, and trying to then use communication structures to try to hopefully bring, not that we're great knowledge guys up here, but to at least share the knowledge that we have internally with the public so that we're all on the same page. And sometimes you can't win with that either because you have situations like, let's just talk about the tea for a second, right? You get a little bit of a problem with the tea, but a lot of that goes back to investment, management, and I always say that sometimes you have, we can open up to the audience, what would everybody like, and we're going around and doing these conversations around the state, and usually it's more of something. More, funding for education, more funding for transportation, more funding for rail, more funding for this, more funding for that. And then when you talk about how the funding's going to get there, don't raise my taxes. Don't talk about new revenue. And I would say it's sort of like, wanting to go to heaven, but not wanting to go through, dying to get there. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die to get there. So it's the perception and reality of issues that I found over the years to be the most challenging. Quite frankly, I think we trust the citizenship and we share the exact same information that we have, and we're able to get it out to everyone, and they're able to understand the same issues that we're dealing with, then 9 times out of 10, we're not too far apart from each other. Those that are serving and those that we serve. It's just that the issues get really balled up in the press, and you have interest groups that are behind some of that in advertisements. And so perception and reality to me has been a consistent issue.
I guess in many ways we'll be saying the same thing, but I do agree with Michael and those two issues. And I have always been somebody that has been trying to be a consensus builder. I try to get people together and let's try to find the common ground. And there's just those few issues where you just can't. You just can't find that common ground, and it's there, and you have to take a vote, and you know that people are going to hate you one way or the other. And that's challenging because back in my business, my job in my life has always been to make every customer happy. And when as a state representative, a state senator, my job is to try to make as many constituents happy that I'm doing the right job. And then you run into those, those issues that are very difficult, and it just goes against you. But unfortunately, after 16 years, your skin gets a little thicker, and you get to put up with a little bit, more criticism, and you don't take it personally. Your family takes it a little bit personally. I got my daughter here, who's a student at Bridgewater, right up here, Emily. She doesn't like it when people say bad things about me, but I handle it pretty well. So, but that's the sense, and we don't like it, but that's what we get paid to do, and it's the hardest part of the job.
Thank you, Joe. Other questions?
Good night, everyone. My name is Armando, and I teach at Brockton High. Also, it's like Brockton High is in the house. I'm not a communication major, so I'm going to try to see if I can frame this question the right way. I'm in education not only as a teacher at the high school level, but I also teach a course at UMass Boston, and I teach primarily language minority students from basically all over the world in Brockton. And we understand now how to teach these kids. We have a lot of pedagogy. We've gone to a whole lot of graduate courses to really understand that. When I say we, my colleagues and I in the district where I work that really has been doing an incredible job with language minority students. Last 2 years ago, we received one of those grants to really design a program that was really first of its kind. It was to teach science, language, and also technology to language minority students. And we really crafted a really nice curriculum for that, and it worked marvelously. We had people coming in from Harvard University doing a review of the program, writing a whole lot about it. There was publications everywhere about it. It worked. It was beautiful. And then this year we received the news that the program has been cut. How are we supposed to really look at these things? I mean, we know in the field, in the trenches, we're doing the best that we can with very little resources, and every time we get something and we do everything right, but it still gets taken away from us. So how are we supposed to look at this picture?
This is something we've run into quite a bit. In my 16 years, we had the big crash of 03. In 03, the 03 budget after September 11th. In 08, we saw the big crash, the stock market crash, and the implications of those of us who have to make the decision financially to cut back. And there's a constitutional requirement for the governor that if, and they call it 9C cuts because in the Constitution, that area he has to cut to make sure if he knows that his budget is, in this case, he or Deval Patrick, know that their budget isn't gonna meet the numbers, they have to cut and they have to find things, and they only have certain areas where they can cut. So it is a very difficult aspect of our jobs, and we do the best that we can to try to budget. In this particular year, the biggest challenge that we faced was the fact that we have 250,000 more people on mass health than we anticipated. And that's certainly not a good thing, in the sense that the cost of it, and they're just unanticipated expenditures. When we went in and finalized the budget, we really felt that it would be a balanced budget. But because of that exponential growth, and many of you know about the healthcare connector and all the problems that the healthcare connector had. Well, there were people that left a job, went somewhere else, didn't have the ability to get health insurance. And because they couldn't get into that connector and it was tied into the federal government and all of those challenges, then you either said, sorry, you don't get health insurance, or you put them on mass health. And ultimately, because they didn't pay for it, they were getting it free, we, the Commonwealth, were paying for it, which obviously creates a shortcoming financially. And that's the bottom line. At the end of the day, it comes to revenue. And so you have to make difficult, and in this case, the governor had to make difficult decisions in making cuts. None of them are good, and none of us take pride in that, and we do our best to try to find, budget. But we've had this since '08. You never saw a real turnaround. The economy come back after an incredible drop. You never saw an incredible turnaround. It's been a very slow move upward. Is it growing? Somewhat. 4.8% next year, or 4.5% this year. Problem is 4.5% is about $850 million. The reality is a level budget with no changes grows by $1.2 to $1.5 billion. So you see this, there lies our challenge, that our revenue is not keeping up with just maintenance, what they call a maintenance budget. And that's, the challenges that you address is certainly something that we don't want to do, and hopefully we can address in the future to try to help you pursue a program like that, because we know it makes a lot of sense.
But my question was really directed at the idea of the concept of merit. Your brother educated me, so I'm sorry.
There you go.
It's that question
we don't talk in
merit.
front of the dinner
It's
table.
the idea that we've been sold on, the idea of merit. We work very hard, and the whole system worked very hard, because we are trying to learn how to teach these students. It's very difficult. It's very difficult pedagogy because it's language, and then we're trying to do it only in English only, as we were told. We have finally figured out how to do that, and teaching them very difficult concepts, biology, chemistry, mathematics, and all these things. And we succeeded. It was a great program. It merits to be funded, and then the funding gets cut. So, but I do understand the situation, but I just want to kind of let you go with this idea there that maybe we need to look at the merits of things a little bit more when we just start slashing things all across the board.
Well, thank you. Let me, and it's frustrating when you work so hard to build something, and then when you get it right, it's taken away from you. That is frustrating. Unfortunately, in our world of publicly funded programs, especially if it's publicly grant funded, and it's not sustainable, I've seen it happen way too many times. The good news is you did do something, you've learned something, and you haven't lost that. You still have that knowledge. You can still apply. We just need, the challenge is finding a sustainable funding source for that. We see it in public education. We see that in public safety. I represent the city of Fall River, and we've seen our fire department get decimated because they were funded, many positions were funded with something called a SAFER grant, this public safety grant. When the grant went away, there was no structure to sustain those positions in the operating budget. So please stick it out. Don't give up. It's probably not, you're young. It's not the last time you're going to be disappointed in your career, but but please we need you to continue doing what you're doing in your life of public service as a teacher at Brockton High. I know that program, by the way. I serve on, I'm a frustrated scientist. I'm a life scientist, a biology, in the biotech industry, and I know that program that you're talking about, that you worked on at Brockton High School, and it was successful. I did not know it was eliminated or cut, so, it's regrettable, but don't give up.
Let me just add something to this conversation. As a lifelong educator at many different public institutions here in Massachusetts, I could never understand why legislators and governors couldn't see the wisdom of education and invest heavily in education in such programs as that. Until I spent 18 months in the governor's office and as a member of the governor's cabinet and began to realize the challenges that these gentlemen and governors face. So when I was at the table arguing for funding on education, it was a governor or a set of legislators having to decide whether they were going to deal with a population that was homeless, children that were being abused and sometimes murdered and killed in a DCF situation, or give me more money for education. So when we think about it, we know from our vantage point that what we're doing is the right thing, it's a good thing, but understand the challenges that they face and the kinds of decisions that they have to make. And sometimes it's life or death.
That was great to hear that from Dan Malafari, because he was there in the governor's office. He could see what was happening from an executive branch perspective. I just wanted to your point, in some of these issues that go across the government, not just in education, we get the same complaints in terms of human services or public health, programs that were grant funded. There's a statistic that was given to me not too long ago that I think would be very instructive for all of us to think about. And it has to do with the senior tsunami that is here. It's not coming, it is here. There are thousands and thousands, I think it's something like 10,000 a day, turning 67 years old. And when you start thinking about that number, it's a great thing, because the longevity is significant. People are living longer. But there's a percentage of those people that are living longer that end up as part of the mass health numbers, and they're part of our long-term care budget. And it's something that you can't as easily, cut. Because when you're cutting some of these, you actually are, determining that somebody's not going to live any longer. And so these are the types of challenges that will be there for the students who are graduating from this university in the future to help us come up with solutions for. We're talking about a longevity economy that we're going to be, dealing with in the future. How do we deal with that? How do we start to, meet those challenges? And quite frankly, a lot of those challenges, the solutions are not just always to look to our federal government or to our state government, but sometimes we got to look right within our own system, whether it's a school system or within our own bureaucracy at a state agency, and try to see how we can run some of the programs more efficiently. Because if we don't, we're really going to be seeing, cuts across the board in the future.
Thank you. We have time for one more question before we move on to the rest of the program.
Hi, my name is Monica Tavares, and I'm a program manager at the Behavior Association of Brockton. And my question to you, senators, is as son, right, of immigrants, what are you guys doing to motivate, encourage other immigrants to follow public service, to kind of follow your footsteps?
I often have, spoken about this, and it's kind of interesting that we're here, and there's 3 of us of Portuguese American descent in politics out of 40 in the Senate, and so I think it's happening, but I'm seeing it happen more and more. You have Moses getting involved in politics. We're seeing more Cape Verdeans, in my case, Cape Verdeans getting involved in the political process, and that's a good thing. And I try to, as best we can, encourage people, because I always say, if I can do it, anyone can do it. And so it's really a matter of just listening. I'll say it's not rocket science. It's literally listening and trying to be willing to compromise and give, that you can make a difference. And it doesn't have to be as a legislator. It can be as a school committee member. It can be as a member on your planning board. There are ways that you give back in your community that will open the door. So it's not always about, getting to that next level. I see some people get into politics and they immediately they're running for U.S. Senate or Congress. Do the little things. When you do the little things, that's what opens up, serving your community. When I first ran, I was a town meeting member, and it opened up the next door. And so I try to encourage people, do those little things, and in those little things, it'll open up. And if you do them with a desire to really serve, people will see it, and they'll know you're sincere. When they know you're sincere, the chances of them putting trust in you to go to that next level will happen. So for you, with the Cape Verdean community, and you have a very influential population in the city of Brockton, encourage these people to get involved, get active, because when they do, that's how they move up. And I know, Mo, you tried a couple times and weren't successful, and you kept going, and that's how you were able to get elected. And in giving back, that's how you do it, and you can keep moving, and that's how people move up. And it's so serve in the little things, and the bigger things will open up.
I think Vinny hit the nail on the head. It's, you volunteer at the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. You're a Little League coach. You start off in the community, and you realize that, you're helping people in one way or another. And then you rise, you move on to what you feel comfortable with. Vinny says we do have thick skin now, we have to. I'm confident that, I make decisions and take votes that are going to get publicly criticized, because everything we do is in the public light. But I'm comfortable and confident that I did the right thing. Our families don't always feel that way. So my son wants to beat somebody up. It's like, no, Ian, you're not gonna. That's okay. You can disagree with me, and that's okay. We offer internships at our office, how to encourage people. Try to get young people, whether at Bridgewater State or UMass or any of the schools, to come in and work for a couple, a semester or a couple hours a week in our office. That usually hooks people, because they realize that we have a great job. It's not like we're doing the same thing every day. We don't do the same thing every hour. We're doing something different every hour of every day of the week. Where senators and I, we were in caucus today. We had a number of meetings. Senator Pacheco's leading a major initiative for the Senate president, and I saw him hovering with his colleagues, working on that. So it's a tremendous job. Sometimes I do worry, though, when I look over my shoulder, I see, where are the young, successes moving up? Where are they? So I do work hard to try to get a farm team up there.
I'd only add by saying that I think here at university you're doing that. Higher education institutions, community colleges. It's so important to bring in, and I've been asked numerous times to come in and talk to students about not only what I do, but what they could do in the future. Because today, and I know it almost sounds cliche to say it, but I really believe this, that a young person growing up today in the United States that wants to do something that they're committed to, that they're passionate about, and they're willing to work hard for,